My name is Romeo Siquijor, and I will be your host for today. Today, I will be discussing how can we protect 30 billion IoT devices by 2020. IoT, or the Internet of Things, has been the fastest growing branch of technology that has been pervasive in our homes, workplace, cars, hospitals, cities, and practically anywhere you can possibly imagine. It is estimated that the IoT industry will reach a whopping 7.1 trillion economy by 2020. By next year, an estimated number of 26 to 30 billion IoT devices will be connected to the internet or the cyberspace. This exponential growth has just started a couple of years ago with an 8.5 billion growth rate year by year. And trust me on this, there's no way of stopping it. And the more we connect and interconnect things to cyberspace, a dark shadow will always follow. So we need to ask ourselves these three important questions. First, what are the risks and threats associated with the proliferation of IoTs? Second, what do we need to do to protect the IoT space and why? And third, how are we going to protect our world with 30 billion IoT devices by 2020? To answer the first question on what are the risks and threats associated with the proliferation of IoT, I would like to give you some real-life examples. These are mostly taken from newspaper sources. First, at our homes. From 2010 to 2012, TrendNet sold secure view cameras for various uses, ranging from home security to baby monitoring. However, they had faulty software that let anyone who obtained the camera's IP address to view and listen to your intimacies. At our offices, in October 2016, a malware called Mirai searched vulnerable IoT devices and then used known default usernames and passwords to log in and propagate infection. CNN, Twitter, and Netflix were some of the big names infected by this malware. In our cars, in July 2015, a team of researchers was able to take control of a Jeep SUV using the vehicle scan bus or a controller area network. They did this by exploiting a firmware update vulnerability. They hijacked the vehicle over the Sprint cellular network and discovered they could make it speed up, slow down, and even veer off the road. In what we wear. In September of 2017, University of Edinburgh researchers and researchers from Germany and Italy showed that personal information can be stolen from Fitbit devices. But that's nothing. In the medical field, some of us have IoT devices inside our bodies. In January of 2017, the FDA confirmed that St. Jude's, now Abbott, pacemakers have vulnerabilities that could allow hackers to access the device. Now, this is alarming. In the workplace, in 2016, the European steel conglomerate ThyssenKrupp confirmed it was victimized by cyber attack that the company believes that was carried out in connection with industrial espionage. In our cities, in August of 2018, smart city products from three companies, Lee William, Echelon, and Battelle, were discovered to have easily exploitable vulnerabilities that could allow hackers to commandeer sensors and data for malign purposes. And just imagine military devices getting hacked. The simple logic is, if anything connected to the internet can be potentially hacked, and IoT devices are connected to the internet, therefore it can be potentially hacked. Just think about that for a minute. Now, the $7 trillion question is, how do we protect the 30 billion IoT devices by 2020? The bad news is we can't. It's too late. But the good news is it's never too late to start. It's just one of those things that if you don't do it now, things will just go worse and it will never get better. But where do we start? What do we need to do to protect IoTs and why? Have no fear, according to the experts of the IoT World Forum. It's easy. Just protect the 7 layers of the OSI model and you're done. Well, the fact is, it's really easier said than done. Let's review the IoT World Forum model. So on layer 1, we have the physical devices and controllers. So these are the sensors and the IoT devices that you connect to your network. The second layer is the communication or the connectivity part, where you have your routers, switches, and all the networking layer of your ecosystem. The third part is the edge computing, where you have the data elements analysis and transformation of data from one form to another. Then you have the data accumulation stage, where you store the data or information in the IoT world. The fifth layer is the data abstraction layer, or the aggregation and access layer. And the sixth is the reporting and analytics and control layer. The seventh is the collaboration and processes involving people and business processes. So as you can see, this is really patterned after the OSI model. But the big question is it practical, and how do we really protect each of the layers? So most of these layers in an enterprise world, you should have an enterprise security program protecting the layers 2 to 7, right? So for this purpose, I would like us to focus on layer 1, which is the physical devices layer, where your IoT devices are sitting. Then, of course, our friends from Gartner came out with their own IoT reference model, which is pretty much similar to the IoT World Forum model. So Gartner suggests to have a comprehensive security model to protect the IoT world, again, based on what? Based on the OSI model. So you need to protect each of the layers. The big difference that they have is that they included the interface layer, or what I call the layer 0. So the security across the board, from the devices layering up from the process layers, everything is pretty much the same, except that they added, again, the interface layer. Device layer, communication layer, information layer, the functional layer, and the process layer is pretty much the same as the IoT World Forum model. But then again, let's focus on the device layer, since if you haven't been taking care of the security in the other layers, then that's a bigger problem altogether. If there is something that I want you to remember and take away from this webinar, it's this part, specifically point number 1 on how to secure your IoT devices. So this is at bare minimum what you need to do to secure your IoT world. First, if you haven't done so, right after this webinar, set your IoT devices account and password following some password best practices, and please do not use admin or admin password. You can do better than that. Second, if your device allows some sort of transport layer security or cryptography, use it. It's there for a reason. Third, disable UPnP, or universal plug and play. If there's no compelling reason to discover your IoT devices in your network, please do yourself a favor and disable that functionality. Fourth, disable unused ports, both at physical layer such as USB, Ethernet, and other unused ports in your IoT devices, and the logical level or whatever TCP/IP ports, virtual ports that you have at that layer, and make sure that you turn them off. Trust me on this. This is the playground and the breeding ground of hackers. And it's always better to prevent than to remediate at the end. And again, the second layer, the secured network and the secured cloud, I won't be discussing since I assume you're responsible enough to take care of that. So, in summary, first, accept that IoT threats are real. Remember the real-life hacking samples I just gave you and learn from them. Second, know what you need to protect: your assets, your intellectual property, your entire network landscape. Third, conduct risk impact assessment within your organization. Analyze your risk, communicate it to top management, and build a business case to secure funding to start securing your network. Fourth, implement IoT policies and procedures best practices. I'll repeat this. First, set device account and password. Second, use encryption. Third, disable UPnP for auto discovery if there is no compelling reason to have it. And fourth, disable unused physical and logical ports in your IoT devices. The fifth one is implement adequate controls depending on your needs. Depending on the industry where you're in, you may need extra protection and control. For example, if you're working at a nuclear power plant, you probably need better protection than most people here. I suggest that you go to IoT Security Foundation. They've got tons of information on the different layers on what you need to protect in depending on your industry. And six, audit, audit, audit. Know your vulnerability and take corrective actions, please. Seven, ensure compliance. Make sure your policies and controls are practical and feasible. Please do not overcomplicate things. Keep it simple. That's the rule. 8. Build IoT security awareness campaigns. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Security culture is still the best defense you've got. Trust me on that one. And 9, repeat all over again. Before I conclude this cyber talk today, I would like to leave a quote from Scott Berg, the director of the U.S. Cyber Consequences Unit. He said, and I quote, "As long as organizations treat their physical and cyber domains as separate, there is little hope for securing either one," unquote. Be safe and secured, and may the force be with you. Thank you.